Welcome back to the shop. Now, I went ahead after we primed everything. I have now got everything sanded and ready for paint, and I decided I would spare you all that sanding since last time was all sanding. So it's time to start assembling, and then we're going to start painting. And I need to get this skirt. This probably doesn't even need glue. It is so well, such a tight fit, but I want it the same height as this, because this height is pretty good. So I'm just gonna put them together and gauge them and see where I like the height. I think that's pretty good right there. So I'm gonna take a little bit of glue and I'm gonna glue it from the back side. Just put a couple drops in a few spots. Put a little super glue in here on the skirt in a few spots. That'll hold it permanently. This will be where it belongs. This will be where it's at forever, basically. All right, I'll let that dry for a second. Also, I need to add these guys. These are the boot studs. They're painted the same color as the body of the bomb, so I can go ahead and drop a little bit of glue down in there and down in there and glue them in also. Well, it's a tight fit. Probably got too much primer on them. There we go. There. They're in there good now. I have everything else ready to paint also. We're not going to be painting these two pieces. This is the radio knob that goes right there. And this is the little wire management clip. That's not going to be painted either. So I'm going to set these aside. But what we are going to paint is the little EQ buttons, the top button, the photo multiplier diode pieces, and the gear. This is the gear from the Revell Visible Engine Kit. So first thing I'm going to paint is the cap, and we're going to paint that silver. There we go. We'll let that dry. This piece right here, this is the gear. And this gear actually stays pretty much the same color as it came out of the kit. So I've got some winter gray. Looks like a pretty good color. So I'm going to spray this winter gray. Hopefully it kind of matches the original color of the Revell kit. All right, there we go. Actually, that could be a little bit darker, but I think it'll be all right. I'll set that right there. Now I'm going to spray these guys. These two tuner knobs are going to get just straight black. I'm using a semi-gloss black on those. Now we got these guys to paint. Normally I would use like the rattle can chrome on it. This silver right here is not really rattle can chrome. It's more like an aluminum color. It kind of dulls down and it's not shiny. As I decided on this one, see this piece here, on the originals it's shiny, but over time it got really rusty. So I'm gonna do the rusty version, kind of the way it looks today. But these need to be shiny, and I have something, this stuff here is so shiny, so chrome. This is a lot like the, I think it's called a Lumiluster. This is similar to a Lumiluster. This is what they painted Din Djarin's armor. This is similar to what they used to paint it. So I'm going to load my airbrush. All right, here we go. Actually, I wish I had that spray chrome instead. I think this stuff needs a little bit more of a refined piece. These didn't look bad until I put that silver on there and they started to look a little rough. We'll let that sit aside, dry. Might come back to that, might paint it with something else because I really don't like the way it's looking. But anyway, this bomb housing or motor housing, it actually has a texture to it. It looks like a casting, almost like a sand casting. And then I noticed when they painted the apron, they painted the two together because they put a textured paint job on this also. There's a couple ways to reproduce a textured paint job. One way is to use spray glue, and you just dust spray glue all over it, and that gives you a texture, but it tends to leave the paint so and you can peel it off or damage it easily. There's another technique. If you hold your sprayer back, matter of fact, since I'm going to be doing a lot more spraying, I'm going to go ahead and put my respirator on. You hold your sprayer back, it creates a texture. Then when you've got a little bit of a texture built up, then you can put a little bit of heavier coat on there. And this is one way of creating a texture using the actual color you're going to be doing. And for the most part, if the material is halfway decent, it works pretty good. I'm using a primer. I'm using a primer coat this time, and hopefully a little bit thicker material will assist in giving me some textured buildup. Starting to work. Slowly starting to build up some texture. Trick is not to let it get so wet that it starts to flow together. You give it a few minutes between coats and you keep doing that dusting, and it's just like it stays a little bit tacky, but it doesn't allow anything to flow really well. And that'll slowly build up a texture. If the material was a little bit heavier, it would work a little bit better, but it's doing the job. It's just taking a little bit longer. All right, if you saw real quick, I resprayed these guys. They look a little bit better. I'm not 100% happy with them, but I'm going to go ahead and use them as is. Also, we're going to let this dry for a couple hours. Let everything dry for a couple hours, and then we're going to start working on assembling this thing. Before we got started, I had made a cardboard template to slide all the way up to recreate that floor that goes right here. The floor that we need is what the switch is going to go to. So I transferred this to a piece of scrap plastic, which is going to be our real base. And I'm going to go ahead, while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, so when this is dry and we can start putting things together, I already have this ready to go. There we go. Now, this will be ready to go as soon as we're ready to glue this all together and start putting it together. We've got a few more things to do, but I'm going to go ahead and give this a little more time to dry. We'll be back in a few. There are two of these that we know survived. They are both documented as being original screen used bunker bombs. One of them has had a pretty good life, it looks like. Its colors are much brighter, much better looking. Then there's a second one that's missing most of its greeblies, and it's much darker, and it doesn't look like it's had as well of a life. And I think I want to make mine, this one, the color's just a little bit off. I wasn't able to find a brown I was really happy with. So I'm going to do a black wash on this one to bring the color down. I want it to be a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of paint, and I'm going to paint this whole thing black and then wipe the black off and hopefully bring this brown down. And I'll definitely do some weathering at the end also. Let's just do a little area, wipe it off and see what we get. Yeah, see, there we go. It's already looking a little bit darker. So that's what I want to do. All right. Now, we've got some yellow and red stripes. I'm going to lay those out. I got some fine line tape. This stuff works good because it doesn't really allow paint to bleed underneath it most of the time. And it's just about the right spacing to get the distance between the yellow here and the red there. I'm gonna lay out my stripes. Looks like they're 90 degrees apart. So there's a stripe right here and then a stripe right here, and they line up with that cutout and the center of that cutout, those two cutouts right there. But I'm going to use a little bit of fine line tape to help me keep my line straight when I paint it. I am going to brush it on though, because that's how it was done originally, was brush painted. If I'm not totally 100% symmetrical, I think I'll be all right. So like I said, they were all done by hand originally, so they're not perfect from side to side. So like that. Now to finish off the yellow. Now let's finish off the red. Red is actually somewhat in line with the bottom set. All right, yellow, red, yellow, red. All right, let's make some yellow. This yellow is definitely going to be too bright, so I'm going to try to get it closer to what we need. I'll throw a little orange in it, see if that gets me what I want. Oh yeah, just a little bit of orange. I think I'm going to stick with this. While this is drying, I'm going to set that right there, and let's address a few of the other pieces. And my workspace is a total mess. So, when you sit down and start a project, everything just gets destroyed. So we've got a few things here. I got the tuner dials, or the tuner knobs, the stereo knob right here, little clip right here. Now, we've pretty much, I don't like the way these turned out. I'm going to go ahead and finish these and put them on, but in the future, I'm probably going to replace these guys. I don't like the way they turned out. But what I'm going to do to these is exactly, especially with this floor here, is exactly what they did for the original prop. And what I'm going to use is some aluminum tape. This is exactly, you can actually look at the prop, and there is actually, you can see a tape seam line inside the prop. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces. The seam line is exactly in the middle. You can see it. If you look between past the dial, you can actually see, the seam line. And I'm going to put my seam line in the exact same spot, going right down the middle. They actually used a lot of this aluminum tape on a lot of different props, including the Emperor's, the Royal Guards. Their staff were force pike. Their shafts were all done in aluminum tape. They're just pieces of pipe. All right, there we go. A little piece of wood will help smooth everything out. I'm going to go around it with a pair of scissors, trim off all the excess. Now this stuff is actually recently, the recent few years, this stuff's been hard to find without labeling inked on it. I used to use this stuff comes in different weights and thickness, kind of like the way aluminum foil, you can get the thick or the thin aluminum foil. You get thick and thin of this stuff. The thin works better. The thicker is a little harder to manage. The thin that I used to buy was a 3M product, and 3M started putting 3M all over it. So every time you pulled out, it had 3M, 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 and I had to stop using it. So this is the only brand I found that at the hardware store. I haven't done a lot of online checking, but at the hardware store, Nashua is the only brand I found that doesn't have all the writing on it. So if you want to do it like this with the aluminum tape, you're going to have to do a little searching to find the stuff. But yeah, this thick stuff, it's really not as good as the thin. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to wrap this knob in tape, and we're also going to wrap these knobs in tape and this guy. So right now I'm going to make one for the lid or the top of this knob. This stuff works great if you're doing like, say you got like a a wooden sword or wooden knife or even a 3D printed sword or knife, this is perfect to get a metallic finish on your blade. You can find this in this aluminum tape. You can find it in the heating and air conditioning, the duct work section at the hardware store. Should be a whole section of it, and all, like I said, all different thicknesses. And really what you want is the thin stuff. But once it's stuck, it does stick really good. Bring it right up to the edge. I'm going to cut out the middle so we can put our 2 greeblies that go on top, the knob and the Revell engine timing chain gear. That's what goes on the bottom. All right, so then I'm going to cut right across the top, kind of on an angle like this. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut right like this. And just trim that edge. Now the original knob had a bevel cut into it when it was manufactured. There we go. Perfect. There we go. Start right on that top edge. Now this is where the thick stuff gets difficult. This thick stuff wrinkles really easily, and since it's so much thicker, it's difficult to get the wrinkles out. And what really works best, I found, is a nice piece of wood. What you do is you use the wood to massage the wrinkles out. Now, this technique works really good on the thinner stuff, but this, like I said, this thicker stuff, it's a little more difficult. Cut right across the top of it. Take off all the excess off the top. Perfect. Now I can set it down and really work it. All right, now it's time to trim all the extra off the top without damaging what we already have up here. There we go. There we go. Now I have a chrome stereo knob. And with that little bit of extra on there, I bet you this is going to fit in there super tight. A little bit, there we go. A little bit better. There we go. Awesome. I'll put that right there. Now, the next one. These two guys. One thing you can do, which is pretty cool, you push really, you leave an indentation. See how I left that indentation? Now that's going to give me a perfect cut line for those guys. There we go. One down, one to go. There we go. 2 EQ tuner knobs. Now finally this guy right here. Slide it right up inside there. There. A nice shiny clip. All right. Done with the aluminum tape. We'll get that out of here. All right, so I wasn't happy with the way this turned out, the red and the yellow. So off camera, just sitting down here, I cleaned it all off and used a different fine line tape that was working better, stuck better. The last tape didn't adhere very well, and it was lifting, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just kind of old, but I went back, used some fine line tape, When I freehanded it, I kept getting a little bit out and tried to straighten it. It kept getting bigger and bigger, and so I scrapped all that, wiped it all off, redid exactly the way I did it before, except for I used a better tape this time, and it turned out a lot better, and I'm a lot happier with it. So there we go. So we're almost ready to assemble. I just need to weather or age the top of this. This button right here is all rusty on the current props. In the movie, it was nice and shiny, but I'm going to make it more the way it is currently. So I just need a little bit of black to start out. And I'm going to just paint the whole thing black real quick, all the way around. A little bit of water. Actually, I put a little drop of water right on top of it. Just thinning it out. Now, I'm just going to, instead of wiping it off, I'm actually going to dab it off. The reason why I'm dabbing is I want to leave a texture behind, kind of like when something rusts, it will, even after you clean the rust off, it'll leave like a black stain. And that's kind of what I'm going for, like just leaving a little bit of a pattern behind. The next thing I'm going to do is add a little burnt umber. Just going to do the same thing I did with the burnt umber that I did with the black. Paint the whole thing and then dab it back off. All right, I'm going to set that aside, let that dry for a minute. Now, I was looking to see if I could find the little bulbs that actually go in here, the vintage bulbs. They're hard to find, and when you do find them, they're kind of expensive. I originally planned to put batteries and a switch and everything in here so the lights would light up, but I'm actually not doing that. I'm just going to finish it as it is. I don't even think, if I'm correct, the 3D files don't even have a bulb to go in these, like a 3D printed bulb that you could paint and just put in there. I'm going to work on trying to figure out how to get these bulbs, or maybe figure out a way to make them, because I do want to finish this with bulbs. So I am going to assemble the bomb, but not where I can't take it apart. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the floor we're putting in, the base. Now I made this just about the right size to be pressed in. There we go. I knew I had it so it would just press fit in. Just have to put it in the right way. This is the switch, fits right there, like so. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to put 2 little drops of super glue on it so I can actually snap it loose in the future. It's kind of going to be more like a temporary gluing in place. All right, up next is our 2 little EQ knobs. I'm going to put them in too. These can be glued down permanently, right where I want it. There we go. Now I'll move around to this side and our little cable management deal. So let's glue on this. We'll assemble this. There we go. That's right where that belongs. Now these guys did not turn out the way I wanted them to, and I'm actually going to replace these in the future. So I'm going to put a little less glue on it also. I have a few ideas on how to make these possibly out of metal. These are actually on a lot of different props, and I have this exact same piece that I made before I discovered what this actually was. I made a few years back an Emperor's Throne from Return of the Jedi. There's 2 of these on there, and I didn't know what they were. So I just went off the shape and made them and put them on there. Now I know what they are. I need to put them on there correctly and update that part of the prop. All right, there you go. So the decal that goes right here, those that were used in the movie, those were made from a dry transfer sheet. One of the prop makers made custom sheets of just shapes, just like faux letters, and he went out and had that made into dry transfer. So during production, you would just grab a sheet and you had all these letters that you could just dry transfer. Now, most of the time you had to dry transfer works best on paper. So if you notice on the original bomb that where the label or the markings are, it's a piece of yellow construction paper. I didn't have any construction paper that matched. So when I repainted the stripes, the yellow stripes, I painted a piece of paper also, and then ran it through my printer. You can see all the tries where we were messing with scaling and stuff. But once I figured out the scaling and the size and everything, I ran this piece of paper with the paint on it. It's the exact same paint that I used to paint the stripes on there. So color match wise, it should be perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and, and these letters, we just took the picture and pulled the letters off and then sharpened them up because it was a photograph and they're a little rough on the edges. So we sharpened them up. So basically these are taken directly from the actual prop itself, or a picture of the prop. Choose the one on the end here. So I'm gonna put it right there. I didn't cut it perfectly square and perfect. If you look at the originals, they're kind of cut crooked, and wasn't too concerned about that. So we're gonna grab some spray glue. If you don't have any, Super 77 is the best stuff ever. Spray adhesive, you can do all kinds of stuff with this stuff, including making your own stickers. You give it a few minutes to tack up, and it'll make a nice sticker. There we go. All right, so the last thing I have, or last couple things I have, is these guys right here. I tried to reprint the thumb screws, the little knurled thumb screws. I tried to reprint them twice on my printer. For whatever reason, it just doesn't want to do them. I think it's messing up on the knurling. So I quickly knocked out 2 of them on the metal lathe out of aluminum. These pieces come from a record player. It's called a Mitchell transcription machine. These are the exact same little thumb screws or finger screws that are on Darth Vader's boxes on his belt. These pieces show up in a couple other different props, and they're right here on the bunker bomb also. So I'm gonna put a little dab of glue on there and glue these guys in. These turned out really well. Machining small pieces like this, especially doing the knurling, is actually kind of difficult, because what tends to happen is the knurling, it takes a little bit of pressure to do to create the knurling pattern, and something small like this, it'll bend, and it'll also possibly break off, which actually did happen. This is number 2 and 3. The first one, it almost was perfect, and I was trying to get just a little more knurling, and it snapped off. I'm actually pretty happy with the way this turned out. I'll probably eventually put some screws up from below to hold this in place, but I'm not going to do that until I get the switch and the lights and the new vents from the photo multiplier. I have screws here, and I was actually going to add these screws to this, but I don't want to do that until I get the new ones, because when I make new ones, that all the holes are going to line up and I don't have to fix any holes. But I think it looks good. There's a few things I'm not happy with, but I'm gonna eventually go back and fix a lot of that stuff. But overall, I'm happy with it. I might also, when I redo a few of the pieces and add the lights and everything, I think I'm going to weather this up, make it a little more dirty and grungy. I'm pretty happy with the color. At the end, the red's maybe a little bit too dark, but I'm happy with just about everything. And the sticker looks very much like the original does. You can see the outline of where the paper is at and everything. I think it turned out great. Now, I enjoy doing this, and I'm still trying to figure out how I should do this. I don't know if you guys just want to watch me build these things, or would you like a play-by-play? Would you like to know what kind of paints and stuff I'm using? And most of the time, I'm just using, a lot of these are the Apple Barrel brand, cheap 59-cent paints from Walmart. I use a lot of these because they're cheap, easy to get a hold of, and I primarily use them for weathering. Normally I would have tried to spray that on, but since the original, it was all brush stroked on, and I wanted to put brush strokes back in it. So I used what I had on hand. Probably having an enamel paint would probably work better than these cheap acrylic paints, but I think once it's all done in the overall package, I'm really happy with it. And your feedback would be great. What you'd like to see. If you'd like to see more play-by-play, or, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. Would you like to see me chop some files and mismatch files and make things work a little more accurately and mess around with some 3D files before I print them? Because I know in this one I didn't do that. I thought about it. I was like, well, yeah, I could show you, but if you 3D print like the 3D Builder on Windows 3D Builder, that's what I use because it's simple to use. I'm not very versed in messing with 3D files as much as I would like. I should learn more, to be honest, but and every day I learn a little bit something new. But I think I enjoy doing this. I do this all the time. I just don't know how to go about it yet. I haven't figured it out. I don't know what feels right yet. Sometimes it feels good to say, hey, yeah, I got this. This is where we got this. But other times I feel like just doing it. And that feels right. So I'm trying to figure it out, and if you guys want to give me some feedback to help me create something that you would enjoy or learn more from, I don't know if you want to learn from it or just watch me build something. I don't know. I like both. I like people giving information, and sometimes I like to sit back and just watch somebody create something. But this is kind of like one of my hobbies, my sit-down things that I do anyway. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear or not, but the 3D printer's running right now making something. So it's kind of like model making for me. I don't go out and hunt down models. I go hunt down models of something I want. I've always wanted one of these. I think it's just a cool looking thing, and now I have one. I'm not 100% happy with it, but doesn't mean I can't go back and keep messing with it also, making it a little bit better. I'll probably bring you along for that also. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope to see you next time, and leave me some feedback. I really want to know what you think. See you next time.